Our campus must be dry.
Welcome in, everyone, to another edition of Dry Campus. This is the 9th episode of our podcast where we dive into Indiana basketball and football. We released a basketball episode earlier this week, and this will be our football episode for the week. So we got a lot to discuss today, Ethan. So I'm your host, Cy Balabaj-Petruni, and this is my co-host, Ethan Dillman. And we have a lot to discuss. The Maryland game this past weekend and the upcoming Wisconsin game, as well as a ton of other Big Ten implications. But we have to get the big elephant in the room out of the way, of course, first. And that is the devastating, tragic Michael Penix Jr. injury, where he tore his ACL and now he's out for the season. And that is, I think it's his third season-ending injury in a row, which is really tough to see, especially. And you feel really bad for the kid because, you know, he was really rising into the conversation of, you know, the best quarterbacks in the nation. And it's really tough to see him, you know, going out like this. He's a redshirt sophomore, so he's got a lot of time left. But, you know, it's definitely tough, especially in a season where things are going so well for us.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely just sucks. You know, a guy that is as talented as Penix is, you know, at his best, he is a Heisman candidate, you know. He has that sort of talent. He has the ability to throw a perfect deep ball, to throw many throws under pressure. He's really good at that. And of course, he's had a great receiving core, you know, to throw to. But at the end of the day, he makes a lot of those plays. He makes sure those plays happen. And so, like you said, just a devastating injury, especially in a season where IU football is playing extremely well. It always sucks. And, you know, just take the Indiana part out of it. I feel bad for, you know, the individual Michael Penix. You know, this is, like you said, his third straight year of a season-ending injury. It's in fact the same ACL that he tore a couple years ago. So you hope when I'm guessing they're going to do surgery this time around as well, that they can somehow make it so it's more sturdy and he's able to come back onto the field next season. So yeah, it just really sucks. You hate to see it, but at the end of the day, as a football team, it's next man up. You know, the season doesn't stop for you. It keeps on going. And we got a big task this week against Wisconsin. And now it's Tuttle time. Now it's time to see what Jack Tuttle can do. 4-star recruit. He was recruited by many great schools. USC, I believe, was recruited by Bama. So he's a solid quarterback, and we did see a little bit of him in that Maryland game that we did win pretty comfortably.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just sad at the end of the day. You know, that's what it is. And I hope that, you know, maybe they can figure something out to help him get stronger in that area where, you know, he you know, can build a lot of muscle in his legs and things like that, so that, you know, he can put more weight on it. So maybe the probability and chance of him getting injured goes down, because I think this is kind of a problem in his career that he's had, and where he, you know, is, you know, he's very susceptible to injury, and, you know, he just has that body type where, you know, incredibly athletic, but, you know, if a simple thing goes wrong, you know, it could all go down the hole. So I really hope that, you know, he gets better for next season, and you know, can get a lot more strength in his legs, and, you know, medically they can kind of figure something out to help him out so that this type of thing doesn't happen so consistently. Because I'd love to see him get through a full season. You know, I don't think that's really much to ask, and I know he wants that too. So that's really tough. As far as the team goes, yeah, it is next man up. Jack Tuttle has to get it done, and, you know, from what we saw in the Maryland game, you know, very small sample size, but you know, he didn't make any mistakes. You know, he was able to lead the team down the field a couple times, and make sure we score. Granted, we were running the ball a lot during that period of time, but we are a team that relies on our defense, so that's really going to be the area of emphasis moving forward. But yeah, look, it's next man up. We just have to move on, and we have a lot of football left to be played. So let's how about we dive into this Maryland game?
Yeah. I was the first half was very lackluster. Um, Penix in that first half definitely didn't have a good half. I believe he was 2 of 15 at one point, simply overthrowing receivers. I also think the play calling was poor. I didn't think Nick Sheridan was calling up or dialing up plays to help Penix. Because sometimes, and as good as Penix is, you have to give him some easy throws, I think, if he's struggling. And Sheridan just never gave him those calls. However, compared to the Ohio State game, we were actually able to run the ball, which was very, very important, very surprising, quite frankly. And even with Samson James out, we had the freshman, Tim Baldwin Jr., had 106 yards on 16 rushes, averaged nearly 7 yards a carry. He was a nice surprise. He was a 4-star recruit out of Virginia, had other offers and chose IU. And I think we saw maybe just a little bit of the future in terms of our running back position in Tim Baldwin Jr. And of course, Stevie Scott, only 3 yards a carry, or 3.3 yards per carry. But when the ball's on the 1 yard line, 2 yard line, there's really nobody I trust more than Scott to just get those 2 yards and punch it into the end zone. And I really liked how there was a lot of direct snaps to the running backs. So it was a very interesting move, and it usually worked. And when we implemented it in a drive, we usually at least got a field goal out of the drive, if not a touchdown. And then we would abandon it during the game and be like, why are we abandoning it? Why are we, taking it away when it was working? So I actually hope that we keep that up, because that kind of keeps the defense on edge and kind of adds another just dynamic to this offense. Ultimately, we were able to score 27 points against the Maryland defense. Yes, that isn't great, but we were able to run the ball, which ultimately I will take, because that Ohio State game, we were running into a brick wall every single run. We couldn't get anything going. And so it was refreshing and nice to see that we are able to run the ball against a quality Big Ten opponent. Maryland is better than in years past. So I guess for you, what do you think of this defense? Ultimately, they did score 11 points. The Maryland team did. It was essentially 3 points the whole game. I thought this was one of the best defensive, it was one of the best games that the defense had played all year. So what are your thoughts about them?
Yeah, I'll get to the defense. I just want to add a couple things on my thoughts of the offense that you touched upon. Obviously, Penix didn't really have a good game, good first half. Wasn't throwing the ball well. I did think the Maryland corners and safeties were playing pretty well and weren't giving receivers much space. But, some of those throws you got to make. He was overshooting them. I thought Nick Sheridan did not do a good job of calling this game. You had the Wildcat offense was working. Those direct snaps to the running backs, it was working. We had one scoring drive in the first half, that was all Wildcat. I felt like every play almost felt like a direct snap, and it was working. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We were punting pretty much every other drive that half. So we really ran the ball well, and that's going to be important moving forward, especially with an unproven backup quarterback coming in now. That's going to be key to making this offense work. Now, moving to the defense, I thought, overall they played really well. I think in the first half, Maryland was really playing a lot better than we were from an offensive standpoint. They were moving the ball a lot better than we were. They just kind of weren't able to capitalize in those red zone situations. Talia threw a couple picks. They missed a field goal. So they had a better first half than us, but points wise, we were able to capitalize more than they were. Second half, I thought the defense completely shut them down. I thought, we had another interception. We were really pressuring Talia a lot, and that was really the key. That's been the MO for our success. We pressure the quarterback, maybe get a sack, but even if we don't get a sack, we lead them into a bad throw, and that leads to an interception. Now, Ethan, these are a couple huge stats. One, we lead the Big Ten in sacks. Number two, we lead the country in interceptions with 16 interceptions. We've been getting 2 or 3 picks a game every game. There has not been a game where we have gotten less than 2 picks. That is an absurd stat. And that continued today with Talia Tagovailoa, who was having a pretty solid season, coming off of a couple games where he was playing really great against Penn State and Minnesota. And he just had a really bad game against us today, and he couldn't get it going. 1 touchdown, 3 picks. So this defense really played great and kept us in it. And they shut down Maryland, and that's why we won this game. Because, if we have that type of first half offensively against a lot of teams in the country, we're losing this game by a lot of points. And this defense was the reason they outplayed us, and we were up at half. And that's the testament to the kind of defense that we're playing right now.
Yeah. Going back to those interceptions, I think interceptions have always had a stigma of they just kind of fall to you, and it's like lucky if you get an interception. But if you get, it seems like we're averaging 3 interceptions every single game. At a certain point, it's not a fluke. At a certain point, you have to give credit to Womack, our defensive coordinator, who has been great this year. I always find it interesting how he's always wearing that light blue shirt on the sideline, so the defense can look at him. Maybe that, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Apparently that's working. Especially the all the secondary players. Though Micah McFadden did have an interception. Everybody in the secondary, Mullen, Johnson, Williams, they're always in the best position possible. And that comes with practice. That comes with scouting really well, knowing where the quarterback tends to throw, knowing where the receivers tend to run. And at certain points, it's not a fluke. We're able to get a lot of interceptions per game. And interceptions are just huge. They're massive. They switch the whole tide of the game, obviously. And it also comes with putting, like you said, putting pressure on the quarterback. The Maryland quarterback Tagovailoa didn't have much time to throw. We had Jerome Johnson always coming in. We had Cam Jones always coming in, putting pressure on him. A lot of those picks, he was getting pressured on, and it forces him to a bad throw. And so, this defense is legit, I think. I actually didn't know that we lead the Big Ten in sacks. That actually surprised me. Because I remember in our earlier podcast, we were talking about how our defensive line was not great. How our defensive line, in the podcast for the Rutgers game and the Penn State game early on in the year, how our D-line wasn't getting enough push, wasn't manning up against the opposite O-line. But we've seen a shift. I think we can say they're the most improved group from the Penn State game to now. They've really have gotten better. But like you said, with this offense, it always seems to start slow for us. It always, during the Ohio State game, Penn State game, Rutgers game, it seems like the only game where we got out to a fast start was Michigan. But other than that, we always get out to a slow start, and sure, that'll work against Maryland. I guess against Penn State, the 1-5. Hey, they got their first win this past week against Michigan. Congrats to them. But yeah, against Wisconsin this week, against a good defense in Wisconsin, you're going to be able to have to score points. And of course, we have our backup quarterback in Tuttle. But he was 5 for 5, 31 yards. Obviously, you can't take much from that because a lot of those passes were just quick slants, quick out routes that were easy throws, easy catches. But what's going to be important, and you pointed this out as we kind of move towards the Wisconsin game, is being able to run the ball. We saw success against Maryland. We have to keep that up, because if Wisconsin forces us into being one-dimensional with a backup quarterback, and I know Tuttle is a solid quarterback, but that's still, you're still playing with fire there. You're still it's not going to end up well if that's the case. And so we're going to have to be balanced, have a balanced attack with the passing, with the rushing during the Wisconsin game for sure.
Yeah, we can't have one of those situations where, in the Ohio State game, Penix throws 50 times. You know what I mean? We can't do that with Jack Tuttle. We need a balanced attack where we really get the run game going. But I wanted to touch upon a couple other things in that defense. We did have our first safety of the season, which was huge. So really, really just proud of this defense, man. This is an elite defense, one of the best in the country, I believe. I strongly do, and I think it's a top 2 or 3 defense in the Big Ten, if not the best defense in the Big Ten. So, I think there's great things to come from this, and as you said, the defensive line has improved vastly, and we were talking about that earlier this season when we were doing the podcast. In the last few weeks, it's been a catalyst in making the secondary even better, in pressuring that quarterback, and that's going to be big again this week against a quarterback who in Graham Mertz, who is pretty solid, and he's been able to get the job done this season for the most part. But yeah, moving forward to Wisconsin, I think this is gonna. I do think this is gonna be a really close game. I think it's gonna be really tight, down to the wire type of game, and it starts off with can Jack Tuttle get it done? We were talking about it earlier in terms of, yeah, he was 5 for 5, 31 yards, but as you said, those were a lot of easy throws. But when the going gets tough and we have those 3rd and 8s, those big moments in the game where it's we're down 3 points, and hopefully we're never down 3 points, but if in that type of situation, can he get it done like Penix has been able to do this season? And that's the big question we need to answer. We know our defense can keep us in the game, but the flip side of that is, can our offense win it?
Yeah, and also just in terms of Wisconsin, I can't put a finger on this team simply because they haven't played enough games for me to. I'm looking at their schedule. They've played 3 games, right? Beat Illinois 45-7. Now Illinois is bad this year. I think they're probably the worst team in the Big Ten, but still killed them. Beat Michigan 49-11, and then lost to Northwestern 17-7. So their offense has scored 45, 49, 7. So you don't really know how good their offense is going to be. However, you know how good their defense is. They've allowed 7 points, 11 points, 17. They haven't allowed an offense to score over 20 points yet, or reach 20 points. That's impressive no matter really who you're playing in the Big Ten. So we know I'm expecting our offense to have our struggles against this defense, because they're a good defense, and with an offense coming in with Jack Tuttle, our backup quarterback, who hasn't hasn't started a game this year. You got to imagine he'll be a little bit nervous starting out. That's why I hope our first drives, we don't need any long shot balls. We shouldn't ask Tuttle to make crazy throws. I think we can be a little conservative to begin the game. Maybe just quick slant routes, definitely some running plays, just to get Tuttle comfortable. Then once he gets comfortable, we can really start going. But I don't think we're going to necessarily win this game with our offense. I think we're going to win this game with our strong defense. Northwestern, who has a good defense, was able to hold Wisconsin to 7 points. I don't think there's any reason we shouldn't be able to hold them. I'm not saying 7. Holding a team to 7 points is incredible. But holding them under 20, I think is doable. And like you said, I know they have a good quarterback. However, I really believe in our defense. If we can again get a couple of interceptions, that would be really nice. Of course, getting pressure on their quarterback. And just playing well. And look, this game means a lot in terms of Big Ten potential championship implications for IU. Wisconsin actually is already out of the Big Ten championship. Even if they win their next 2 games, they're not able to move on because they haven't played, or they won't be able to play enough games. But the team and the coaches can't be worried about that. They can't be worried about, going to Indianapolis and potentially to face Northwestern in a championship game. You have to focus on Wisconsin. And I believe that this team is. I haven't seen the word of the week yet, but I'm sure it's something about focus or something along those lines, because coming off of a win in a trap game and then now facing this big opponent, and quite frankly, this would definitely be our best win. Because you look at the big names we've beaten, Michigan and Penn State, they're not good this year, and then the other wins, Rutgers, Maryland, and Michigan State, let's be honest, those teams aren't great. So this would be a statement win for the program. This win would almost, in a way, kind of cement we are not a fraud this year. And the Ohio State game, even though we lost, kind of did, because it was a close game and we actually had a chance to win at the end. But winning this type of game would really cement the idea that this is not a fluke. We're here, we deserve a top 10. We would deserve a top 10 standing in the playoff standing. So I'm excited about this game. But overall, got to be consistent. It's almost like IU basketball. Can just be consistent on the offensive end. That's all we're asking. We don't need huge plays here and there. Just consistent scoring and dominant defense. Get those interceptions. Even when they're about to score, those are huge picks. And just limit the offense enough where our offense can score more than theirs.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really low-scoring game. I think it's going to be a defensive battle. And I think it's going to come down to the turnover differential. I think that's going to be really huge in terms of, which defense can get more takeaways and more valuable takeaways where it gives us good field position from an offensive standpoint. I think, when you have Jack Tuttle in there, we obviously don't know what he can do. He might have a great game, but it's his first start. So he might be a little rusty. We might have to rely on the run game. And Wisconsin has a great defensive line. So, and our offensive line has been the weakest part of our team this season. So that's something that's going to be important. I mean, I really don't know if our offense can have a whole lot of success this game, which is why our defense is going to need to win that turnover battle. But from a defensive side, we talked about Wisconsin and how they've played 3 vastly different games. You mentioned they've given up 7, 11, and 17 points. They actually didn't give up 7 points in that first game. I think that was a defensive touchdown that Illinois got. I'm not completely sure, but I don't know if Illinois even scored on offense.
It doesn't matter. Makes the case even more that their defense is legit.
Exactly. And so here's my take from our standpoint on defense. You play teams like Illinois and Michigan, whose defenses are pretty bad. Not mincing words there. Graham Mertz played well in those games. Played really well. He didn't really have an incompletion. He had like 1 incompletion against Illinois. It was an insane debut. Then he misses 2 weeks and plays Michigan. They absolutely murder them. Michigan's a bad team. And Joe Milton threw like 3 picks that game. and that's a testament to the Wisconsin defense. But look, they played Northwestern. Northwestern has a good defense. That changes things. And Graham Mertz was pressured like crazy, threw 3 picks. So that kind of tells me, hey, Graham Mertz, solid quarterback in the Big Ten, but he's still young. If you can apply pressure and get him uncomfortable and force him into some bad decisions, maybe you can get some takeaways. And our defense has proven to be able to do that, especially against these young quarterbacks, and even against Justin Fields. All right, if we can pick Justin Fields off 3 times and apply a ton of pressure to him, then we should be able to make Graham Mertz's life hell this weekend. So that's going to be key. I think defensive line really being able to pressure Graham Mertz and making him uncomfortable is going to be the key for us defensively. And we got to stop the run. I mean, we've struggled against stopping the run the past couple weeks. I think Maryland didn't have as much success, but they were still in the first half able to run on us a little bit. And Ohio State obviously was able to run on us a ton. So I think this is going to be a big defensive game. They have great linemen on both sides. So the line of scrimmage battle is another thing to take a look at. And we've lost the line of scrimmage battle in games past. So it's going to be really important. But I do think we have a slight advantage in terms of just the experience we've had this season. We've played more games. Our team has gone through more of those situations, and just those times in games where you have to deal with situational football. What do you do here versus what do you do in this situation? Wisconsin blew out their first 2 teams, but also missed 2 weeks in that time frame. And then the first opportunity they had against a team that could pose any threat to them, they just didn't really know what to do. They scored a touchdown in the first quarter and could not do anything after that. So, I think our experience helps us a lot.
Yeah. And if there's 2020, obviously it's been a very interesting year, but if there's something that still holds, it's Wisconsin will be strong on the offensive and defensive line. They always recruit especially on the offensive line, the big farmer boys growing up. Wisconsin O-line is always going to be strong, always has been, and their D-line's always great as well. And I think you hit the nail on the head. At this point, I trust our secondary more than any position group on our team. However, it's kind of that's why if the defensive line can get pressure on Mertz, and as you mentioned, as we saw in the Northwestern game, he seemed to crumble a little bit under pressure. I think we're going to have a great advantage in this game because I trust our secondary to make the interceptions. I trust them to be in the correct spots. So that's going to be very important. If we can get pressure, if Jerome Johnson, who's had a great year so far for the D-line, also Cam Jones, those, two guys and others on the defensive line can get pressure, Wisconsin's going to have a lot on their plate. Also, I would like to point out, when we do intercept the ball, we have to hold on to the ball. That's now 2 straight games where we've had an interception in plus territory and we give up the ball. And I know you're trying to get the pick 6, which I get, and do what you can. But if you start to feel, put 2 hands on the ball, something to ensure that you hold on to the ball, because as much as when we did it against Maryland, we were going to beat Maryland no matter what. Against Ohio State, we did hold Ohio State after that fumble, but imagine if we would have gotten the ball there at the 20-yard line or so, 15-yard line. Like, we got to get better at that. And I know it probably won't continue, but whether that's drills and practice of holding on to the ball, just make sure you hold on to the ball when you intercept it. But yeah, overall, and I think I'll say my prediction here. I think we win. I trust our defense enough to make to win the turnover battle. I think we'll snag at least 2 interceptions. I mean, or at least one. I mean, it's almost a guarantee that we're going to get at least 1 pick per game. But I think it's close. I think we win like 23-21. I think it's around there. I don't think any team gets into the 30s. And what's going to be important for my prediction to hold up is for Tuttle to just not throw boneheaded throws. Don't throw interceptions. You may have one in there where a DB makes a good play, and that I can live with. But no boneheaded throws that clearly leads to an interception or clearly leads, to just a bad play. That's going to be very important. But from what I've seen from Tuttle, from the minimal snaps that he got, and from what I'm hearing about Tuttle, he is a solid quarterback. He's not a scrub coming off the bench. There was a reason he was on the bench. Penix was better, but that doesn't mean he's not good. And I also just trust this defense enough to make the right plays, to win the turnover battle, to limit Wisconsin, especially once they get into the red zone. I think our defense tends to really stiffen up and at least force the field goal. And for some reason, kickers really can't hit against us. It's weird. But yeah, I'm going to go 23-21 IU. Close, and it could go either way, but I think that's my final prediction.
Yeah, I want to move to the offensive side of the ball a little bit, and you mentioned, the turnover battle and Tuttle not making boneheaded plays, and we talked about our defense, getting takeaways and interceptions and things like that, but we don't win that turnover battle even if we get interceptions if we don't play a clean game ourselves. I think the key to the offense this week, especially now with a new quarterback coming in, is to play a clean game. Don't try to do too much. It's okay if you don't score every drive and you have to punt, because our defense will have the opportunity to keep us in the game. Just play a clean game. Do not make poor decisions. This is a perfect game that I think we could implement more of that wildcat direct snap type of offense, where we get Stevie Scott, Samson James, and Tim Baldwin involved, just kind of run all over them. I think it's a big run game. I think that's going to be a big part of the game plan. And talking about, doing those types of plays and not turning the ball over and not trying to make Jack Tuttle do too much. That boils down to one thing. For me, what will make the difference in this game is Nick Sheridan's play calling. I think that is going to be so important going into this game. I think he's going to have to call smart plays, and plays that make sense situationally. Running the ball a lot, short throws, and not having to force Tuttle into making those big, deep throws unless it's necessary. When Penix does it, Penix can make those throws. But, we don't want Tuttle to be making those throws that are thrown into coverage and could come back to bite us. We've shown that we win football games because of complementary football. Our defense makes a big play, gives us good field position, then it makes it easier for our offense to score. I think that's the game plan for this week. Our defense is going to need to put us in great situations where we get the ball in favorable field position, and that's going to help the offense score. Because I don't think this is going to be one of those weeks where we get the ball at the 20-yard line and we drive all the way down the field for a touchdown consistently. I don't think that's going to happen at all. And prediction-wise, I had 24-21. I'm going to go 17-14 now. I think it's going to be a real grind.
But with the IU one?
Yes, yeah. I think our defense wins the game. And at this point, if it was any other season, Penix goes out, I'm choosing Wisconsin to win. At this point, I can't really, go against our team, especially in a toss-up game like this, when it's a game that it's supposed to be close. I'm gonna trust our team because of what they've shown me this year, and I think the Vegas lines of us being like 14.5-point underdogs is absurd, and that's a testament to how little all these analysts and people believe in us, no matter what we've shown them this year. And so another opportunity to prove them wrong.
Yeah, and look, like it's because we have the name Indiana, right? We are not a college football powerhouse, to say the least, obviously. But I and you can't convince me that Tom Allen in this right now as motivation, showing the locker room like, look, Vegas is predicting, or the line is -14. That's 2 touchdowns. That's a comfortable win. I really hope that he's showing them and being like, hey, this is what, even after all of the success that we've had this season, this is what the odds makers think of you guys still. And I mean, whether we win or not, that can be a bit of a toss-up. Things go one way, things go another way. But, I mean, I would put a lot of money down on us at least covering. My goodness. I thought that was pretty ridiculous. We're actually undefeated this year against the cover. And that's a testament. But I guess Vegas hasn't learned yet, which is fine. I know IU is new to the whole actually being good at college football thing here. So we got to get our name cemented in there. But in terms of just playoff, and I shouldn't say playoff implications, bowl implications, we're still very much in a conversation for a New Year's Six Bowl. I've heard a name thrown around for the Fiesta Bowl in there. But that all goes away if we lose this game, obviously. Wisconsin kind of cements itself as the second best team. Not cement, but they have a case now for the second best team in the Big Ten, whether they're playing in the Big Ten championship game or not. So, keeping your New Year's Six hopes alive, which are still very much there, and keeping your 0.01% chance of the playoffs still alive with that win, because a lot has to happen there with Ohio State not playing, and then other conferences shaking out their teams in a way that allows us to sneak up in there. That's of course an extreme long shot, probably not going to happen. But wouldn't it be really cool if we played in the Big Ten championship game and it's against Peyton Ramsey? That would, I mean, that's a kudos to Tom Allen recruiting right there. That is a kudos to look. We have Tuttle in here, Penix, Ramsey. I mean, all of these guys, all recruited by Allen, I believe, that are playing in the Big Ten chip. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, we can't focus on that. We can't focus on bowl implications. We got to get the job done. Like you said, we got to have good play calling, whether that's bringing back the Wildcat, putting more tight ends on the line, putting Hendershot and Bjorson on the line so we can run the ball more, so hopefully we can establish play action play, which I think Tuttle can be comfortable in. But I just think we have enough defensive firepower and just enough offensive cohesion and players, quite frankly, because we still we still have WAP, we still have Freifogel, we still have athletes on this offensive end, especially like it just said for the receiving core. As long as Tuttle makes those throws, I think we'll be fine, and our defense could take care of the rest.
Yeah, I think this is a big game that we need to win. Ohio State, we kind of went in and we're like, it's okay if we lose this game if we can at least compete, and we did. But this is the game where, where we play the team that is really slated to beat us, and that where we win that game. But as fans, we do like to talk about the implications, and obviously lots of bowl implications at hand. I've seen the Fiesta Bowl as well. Right now, I think one of the predictions that I saw has us slated to play USC in the Fiesta Bowl, which would be a cool game. USC's undefeated now, so that would be huge for the program if we were going to be able to get that done. But that's a little ways ahead. But the Big Ten Championship is just a few weeks ahead. It's 2 weeks away, is it?
It was so we're doing this on a Thursday. So we got Wisconsin this Saturday, Purdue, then so a little bit over 2 weeks.
Yeah, so 2 weeks away. And obviously we're a game back. But you need to play 6 games to be able to be eligible for the Big Ten Championship game. Ohio State has played 4 with 2 weeks left. So that means if one more game is canceled for Ohio State, based on the rules, now they might make an exception, which is a whole other thing that we could get into later. That at that point we really can't control anything. But based on the rules as they stand now, if Ohio State misses one more game, they are not eligible for the Big Ten Championship game, which would essentially put us in that game, representing the Big Ten East and where we'd play Northwestern. Now, or Iowa, who knows? Iowa's coming up on the high, so that could be another possibility. But
I know Northwestern has cemented the Big Ten chip.
They have,
yeah. It's some sort of math thing. Even if they lose their next game and Iowa wins out, Northwestern is still in. So
yeah, but if Northwestern loses out, they'd have 3 losses, and if Iowa wins out, they'd only have 2 losses.
They only have 2, because they have 1 loss right now, right, to Michigan State, and they're not playing this week.
So COVID helped them out by canceling one of their own games.
They're not playing this week. I believe they're playing Minnesota, or we're going to play Minnesota. Yeah, that game got canceled. And so even if they lose their last game and Iowa wins, they would each have 2 losses and Northwestern beat Iowa. So
that's true. But look, Ohio State is supposed to play Michigan State this weekend. I personally thought that game was in jeopardy, but it looks like it might be played. I think Ohio State was really just pushing for that, and probably a little sketchy. If it was another team, they probably would have. That game probably would have been canceled. I don't know. Usually, when a school has COVID cases, they've been canceling 2 weeks in a row. That's what the trend has been. Wisconsin did that. Maryland did that. Minnesota's doing that. But Ohio State cancels 1 game, and it kind of seems like they're rushing back into things. Coach Ryan Day will not be in that game.
I'm sure they'll be fine.
Yeah, it is interesting, but the real possibility here is now that Michigan has shut down for COVID, and they won't be playing this weekend, and potentially they might not play next weekend against Ohio State. Now that could be big because Michigan does not really like Ohio State. They're big rivals, and they might try to bring Ohio State down with them as Harbaugh's last cry of victory.
That would be, my somebody had mentioned this to me earlier, last week, 2 weeks. I was like, nah, Michigan wouldn't stoop down to that level, would they? And then it's like, well, I mean, they have COVID cases now, and I'm not saying obviously they have COVID cases. It's not like they're faking it or anything, but it would just seem, if I were to put my mind into an Ohio State fan and to see Michigan get cases a week and a half before the Ohio State game, in which Ohio State has to play to keep on playing for the Big Ten chip, I would be like, really? Huh? That just seemed to work out there. So look, it's fun to speculate, and all that. But at the end of the day, that's for us fans to speculate. That's for us observers of the game. I'm sure the players may be thinking about it a little bit. I know Coach Allen isn't. I know Coach Allen is zoned in on Wisconsin. That is the only thing he's been thinking about. That should be the only thing he's thinking about, because that's the most important game of the year so far for us. But yeah, it's just, and I'm also going through my head, we have to be one of the only Big Ten teams that has played every single game. We just seem to fit our schedule in a way that, I mean, we haven't had any, at least public COVID cases. And then, it seems like every other team that I can think of um, has had at least, one game canceled, whether it was their fault I shouldn't say their fault, their, a COVID outbreak in their locker room or others. But that's kind of a credit to Coach Allen, and the players for really buying in, not, I'm assuming comes with not going out as much, not being in contact with as many other people. Part of it's luck, and it just happened that IU hasn't had many positive cases, but it's just been really nice to be certain that we're going to play every single game that we have in our schedule, and we're not the ones that are impacting others' schedules, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, there's only looking at it, there's only 6 teams that have played every game in the Big Ten. And that's us, Michigan, Rutgers, Penn State, Northwestern, and Iowa. And Northwestern's missing a game this week.
And Michigan too.
And Michigan too. Now Michigan is probably will miss 1 or 2 games, hopefully. It's weird when you root for the COVID cases. I mean, it's not like we're rooting for COVID, but I mean, we'd like that game to be canceled as fans. But at the end of the day, we got to take care of Moose business. Move to 6-1. 6-1's better than 5-1. Looks good, and hopefully we win this game and move back into that top 10 of the college football playoff rankings. And obviously we're not going to make the college football playoffs. I think that's very clear. Like with that Ohio State loss, but it's nice to see the program just rise so much as it has this past season. And just big things to come. Next year is going to be a really exciting year too. Let's finish off this year strong so that we really go into next year with a high ranking and go into next year in a mindset where people are thinking about us. People have we're on people's radars. Where they're saying, all right, Big Ten could come down to Ohio State and Indiana, and that's the conversation people are having. That would be really cool, and that's and it's gonna be exciting because hey, recruits are only gonna get better. If Tom Allen can do this with 3-star recruits, imagine what he can do with 4 or 5-star recruits. So it's a really exciting time to be a fan, and we can speculate all we want about the Big Ten championship game, but even if we don't get there, we take care of business. We'll get a good bowl game, and hopefully we can knock off at least one of those big things that Coach Allen wants to do.
Yeah, and that would be a bowl win. I believe it's been 20 something years since we've won a bowl game. We've had our chances. We've been in Pinstripe Bowl, the Farmers something bowl. I know we lost to Utah that one, and then last year's Gator Bowl, which still stings. Not having the onside or not having the kickoff team ready for that onside kick was still stings in the head. But it's just gonna be very important moving forward. And I like how you mentioned the Big Ten next year could possibly come down between us and Ohio State, and you hope the Ohio State game next year will be in Bloomington, and you hope by then we can have a crowd, and that would be really, really cool. But now focus on Wisconsin. Let's try and take care of business there, and move on to the Purdue game, where no matter what happens with this Wisconsin game, I expect to absolutely demolish Purdue. Leave no doubt. And I know rival games can be tough because it's a rival game. They always are. But, to fully cement that we are the, well, I guess second best team in the state, because we got Notre Dame up in the north that's probably better than us. But to actually cement in terms of the public schools that true fans care about, that would be really nice to really cement that against Purdue. But yeah, on Wisconsin.
On to Wisconsin. It's going to be a fun one. And that game will be on Saturday at 3:30 on ABC. It'll be a really fun game. Can't wait. This is a big one, guys. But hey, hopefully we can get the W and move on to Purdue, like Ethan said, and just really finish out the season in style. So just to let you guys know, we will be live tweeting that game as well, like we always do. We got some exciting stuff coming up. Next week, we'll have another football-basketball podcast. Our basketball podcast will likely be after the Florida State game, recapping the events that will take place on Wednesday night. And our football podcast will, and that one will be also previewing the Butler game, the North Alabama Butler games. Maybe we'll do it after North Alabama. We haven't really decided yet, but we'll let you guys know. Football podcast next week, we'll talk about this Wisconsin game, and we will preview the Purdue game, the big rivalry, Old Oaken Bucket game. But if you guys want to follow us on social media, hit us up at PodDry on Twitter, at DryCampusPod on Instagram. And Ethan?
Smash the subscribe button.
Let's go. We are the Dry Campus Podcast, the best Indiana basketball and football podcast out there. So please tell your friends, tell everyone to check us out, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Our campus must be dry.